Before we start, I want to encourage you to follow us across our other social network accounts. I know, more begging at the beginning of a video, what a surprise, but I promise there's a reason. This week, as we're about to explain, there'll be a number of votes in Parliament, and we want to keep you up to date as they happen. The thing is that I have a full-time job, and even with the amazing TLDR team, we can't get the videos out fast enough. So sometimes we publish articles on our website instead. If you're following us on one of our social network channels, you'll be notified when this exclusive content goes live. To find us, just search TLDR News on your favourite social network. Please note this video was completed at 4 AM on the 12th of March 2019. All information is true at the time of recording, but could be subject to change. For updates, please see the pinned comment at the top of the comments box. As I just hinted at, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the upcoming meaningful vote in Parliament, as well as what happens if it does, or more likely, doesn't pass. So today, Tuesday the 12th of March 2019, Parliament is having another vote on Prime Minister Theresa May's deal, after it was resoundingly defeated by a 230 vote margin in January. I'm sure you'll remember this vote, as it went down as one of the biggest defeats in UK parliamentary history. So if the deal has already failed catastrophically once, why is it coming back from the dead? Well, the Prime Minister is hoping that since January, some 116 MPs have changed their mind and decided to back her deal. But if I'm being completely honest, this was looking very unlikely. This is because no one had changed their mind, and that's because, to put it simply, nothing has changed since the first meaningful vote. May's plan was to go back to Brussels and try and force a concession on the backstop. That's because it was the backstop that was the main sticking point for the DUP and the European Research Group, or ERG, the Eurosceptic wing of the Conservative Party. Both of these groups don't like May's deal, and in many ways, they were responsible for it failing the first time round. So May's plan was, and I don't want to spoil our own video here, to change her deal to limit the backstop, and then hope that MPs would like it a bit more. So to do this, May sent Attorney General Geoffrey Cox to Brussels to try and get either a time limit or a unilateral exit mechanism for the backstop. At least something substantial enough for him to alter his legal advice, which back in January warned MPs of the real possibility of the UK getting stuck in the backstop indefinitely. For weeks, this didn't go at all to plan. Cox had been to Brussels a couple of times, but it appeared that he wasn't able to reach any concessions on the backstop, and he was unlikely to change his legal advice at all, even less convince the DUP or ERG to vote for May's deal. That was until Monday night, when I was putting the finishing touches on this video. News emerged that May and the EU had reached some legally binding changes to the original Brexit deal. These changes were announced at a press conference in Strasbourg, mere hours before MPs are expected to vote on the deal. Due to the last-minute changes and the time they were made, it's not completely possible to tell exactly how this will swing the vote. We have another video which is out now, which explains the changes, so if you're interested in hearing about the contents of the change, then make sure to click over to that video at the end of this one. For now, let's just look at what the key people are saying about it. As I mentioned earlier, the keys to May's success are the DUP and the ERG. So has she been able to impress these groups with her new plan? Well, Nigel Dodds, the leader of the DUP in Westminster, said all of this will need to be taken together and analysed very carefully. See what we mean? At this point it's hard to tell exactly what they will end up doing. But the DUP are certainly sceptical, with DUP MP Jim Shannon saying that all the improvements could prove to be Emperor's new clothes, saying we just need to hope that tomorrow morning the Emperor's clothes won't reveal something very embarrassing for the Prime Minister. Steve Baker, a prominent member of the ERG, echoed this scepticism, saying the government had put very good gloss on something that falls short. He went on to say that while they had an outline of what had been agreed, they didn't have all of the details, saying, "I look forward to the full text, and the opinion of the team of lawyers we have set up to advise us. It's good to see rising enthusiasm and reference in legal text to the Malthouse Compromise." So at the time of recording, we don't know exactly how the vote's going to end up going. We'll update you as soon as we have a clearer view of it, and we'll do so via a post on tldrnews.co.uk. So let's talk a little bit more about the three votes that are set to go through Parliament this week. So hopefully you've gathered by this point in the video that today they're holding Meaningful Vote 2.0. If it passes, then May's deal is enacted, and the UK leaves on the 29th of March, unless for some reason they need a technical extension to sort out the necessary legislation. This would also mean that there'll be no more Brexit votes this week, and the scriptwriters at TLDR can take a well-deserved break. However, as we explained a minute ago, this probably isn't likely to happen, so it's back to the workhouses for the scriptwriters. Sorry guys, Brexit doesn't explain itself. If her deal is defeated, then on Wednesday, or tomorrow when this video is released, Parliament will vote on whether or not it supports leaving the EU without a deal on the 29th of March. If this deal is defeated, and Parliament decides that it doesn't want a no deal, which is also pretty likely, then there'll be a final vote on Thursday about whether or not Parliament wants to request a short extension to Article 50. This last vote, it's worth noting, would not technically be legally binding, but it's very unlikely that the government would ignore the express wish of Parliament. So we've talked through the first vote. It looks like May's deal might be defeated again, although probably not by quite as big a margin this time. For anyone who looks at the news at all, this has probably been pretty obvious for a long time, so it's not exactly the most shocking or exciting revelation. The last minute adjustments could change the tides, but as we've said, we're not entirely sure right now. Maybe ultimately, the more interesting vote will be on Wednesday, when Parliament votes on whether or not it wants a no deal. Not because of the outcome, it's pretty unlikely that Parliament will vote for a no deal, given the vast majority of MPs have already come out in opposition to it, but because of the question about which way the government will whip its MPs. If you're not familiar with the term whip, then it's not quite what it sounds like. Essentially, it's when the party leadership attempt to get all of their members to vote in the same way. The party decides their official strategy, and then it's the chief whip's job to try and get all of their MPs to vote alongside the party, though they aren't always totally successful. In this vote, May has three options. She can either whip for a no deal, against a no deal, or she can leave it as a free vote. Typically, free votes are reserved for moral issues, such as war or same-sex marriage, and so it would be constitutionally a bit bizarre for the government to allow a free vote on something so expressly political as Brexit, which the government has actually whipped on in the past, and which was included in the Conservative manifesto. But if she whips for a no deal, she risks alienating Remainer Conservative MPs, as well as minister resignations, and maybe some defections to the independent group. If she whips against a no deal, then she'll probably still suffer some ministerial resignations, just from the pro-Brexit ministers instead of the Remain ones. But she also risks offending the Conservative Party members and voters. 57% of the Conservative Party's members support a no-deal Brexit, so whipping against it isn't going to make her too popular with her own party, and could end up hurting her party's chances at the next general election. Also, whichever way she whips, it's unlikely to change the outcome, given that MPs would have had to ignore her whip on the first vote for this vote to even take place. If they ignored her whip then, why would they choose to listen now? Basically, as it always is with Brexit, May doesn't really have any easy ways out. Anyway, on to the last vote, the one which will be held on Thursday regarding an extension to Brexit. The vote is explicitly on whether or not Parliament wants the government to seek a short extension, although no one knows quite how short is. This is also an interesting vote, because if it's defeated, then what would happen next? By this point, Parliament would have ruled out a no deal, but also ruled out an extension. This might seem ridiculous, but it's actually surprisingly possible. If Parliament doesn't want May's deal, they don't want an extension to renegotiate Brexit, and they also don't want a no-deal Brexit, what do MPs actually want at this point? Well, that's essentially the problem. It's very possible that none of the potential solutions will actually have a majority, which makes things incredibly difficult for Parliament. Even if the vote to extend passes, there's another big issue on the horizon. There are European parliamentary elections coming up in May, with new MEPs taking their seats at the beginning of July. If the UK doesn't want to take part in these elections, then they really can't extend Article 50 beyond July 1st, and May has been clear that she doesn't want to see the UK taking part in the elections. This means that the can gets kicked down the road with an even steeper cliff edge on July 1st, when MPs will probably be faced with the choice between May's deal and a no-deal Brexit, with no possibility of an extension. As the week goes on, we'll be explaining Brexit harder than ever. You can expect more videos going into even more detail about the votes each day, as well as analysis after each vote telling you exactly what happened and what the implications are. We'll be sharing some of that in the form of videos. We'll also be posting articles on our website as unsurprisingly, that's so much faster than animating an entire video. To make sure you don't miss any of the articles or videos, follow us across our social network accounts. There's links below, or you can just search TLDR News.